with the creation of new jobs and businesses. Certainly, we will see the growth of the yachting sector into a more organized economic activity in the north, attracting greater number of visitors to our country. The Marina will be constructed at an estimated cost of US $75 million, or just over EC $200 million, over an 18 to 24-month period by Range Development, with funds raised under the Dominica's Citizenship by Investment program. The Carbridge Marina construction is part of this government's overall thrust to implement several major infrastructural projects over the coming months and years, which will lead to sustainable development and long-term social and economic prosperity for our country. I wish to signal our intention to commence shortly a number of major initiatives, including the Roosevelt Enhancement Project, for which funding has been secured from the Saudi Development Fund. This was approved in the Parliament late last year, and we are putting the final touches on the project plans so that we can commence. As a matter of fact, this project is expected to go to tender in the coming weeks. The Future Housing Program will proceed in the month of June this year with the commencement of construction of 10 villas at Warner. They in fact villas, you know. This program is geared at young professionals and young people in general who wish to invest in a tangible asset to secure their own futures and as a way of building generational wealth. The Ministry of Housing is finalizing details with the contractors in order to begin mobilization for this project. As a reminder also, the lots are available in Jimmet, Collio, Hillsborough Gardens in St. Joseph, Canefield East, and Cotton Hill for purchase at competitive prices. Again, I want to urge young people, the need for them to invest, first in building a home, and secondly in investing so that you can have a second income and be part of the prosperity that this government is seeking to create for Dominicans. There are huge opportunities. So my advice is build a home upstairs, and the downstairs you could rent as Airbnb. So instead of building 4 bedrooms for yourself, you can do 2 for yourself and 2 to rent out. And you will still have a 4-bedroom house, but it will be bringing you money, additional revenues. The credit union has indicated, the National Credit Union has indicated that this is the most money it has made since its existence. And its profitability is high. And it has monies to lend to prospective local investors. Likewise, the National Bank, as the International Monetary Fund and Central Bank would indicate, they are liquid, meaning they have money, and they're prepared to lend those monies for those investments. So let us put ourselves forward and be progressive in our efforts at empowering ourselves and taking advantage. Because what I'm seeing happening in Dominica with regards to the international airport and their major investments, we're seeing a lot of scouting taking place by foreign people, looking for lands and to invest and to build. And we must be part, we have to ensure that we are part of that prosperity in Dominica. And of course, the future housing is an effort towards giving young people that opportunity, young professionals opportunity to own a home. We're also working towards the start of a new modern cargo port, which will be located at Canefield, down at the industrial site area, and a new cruise village at the Woodbridge Bay. Further details on these important projects will be provided in due course. Suffice to say that we do have the funding for the cruise village, and so we're finalizing details on those. Of course, we are making steady progress with major projects which will revolutionize the way we live and do business in Dominica. The cable car development in the Roosevelt Valley is on schedule to add value to the tourism sector, and I shall visit the site early next week, and I will extend an invitation to the press to accompany me if you will have the time. The geothermal power plant and transmission lines from Loda to Fokole will soon come on stream to increase efficiency in electricity generation and reduce costs. And work on the international airport continues and is on schedule, taking shape as each day passes by. Very soon, we plan to organize a series of stakeholder tours to the site so that more of our people can see the extent of work on the ground firsthand. The fact of the matter is, there has been tremendous earth movement and other developments on the site of the international airport. And our plan is to engage the Dominican people more directly as the project progresses. On the question of electoral reform, earlier this month, I announced that the copies of the proposed electoral reform legislation had been provided to the Electoral Commission for review and feedback. This was an important step forward in our ongoing efforts to modernize the electoral system in keeping with recommendations from various interest groups and individuals coming out of extensive consultation held last year. As indicated, copies have also been forwarded to the members of the Cabinet and Parliament, as well as to the OAS, the Organization of American States, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS, and the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, and the Commonwealth Secretariat, who all sent observer representatives during the consultation process. We await comments from the Commission and the Chief Elections Officer. However, we still hope to meet the informal deadlines I have set to go to the Parliament in June of 2024 before the passage of the 2024-2025 budget. I am eager to put this matter to rest in the best interests of the Dominican people and our country's electoral system. And so I look forward to prompt feedback from the Electoral Commission to help facilitate the process. At this point, I will pause and take the questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister, and just to note that the draft electoral reform legislation is now available on the Government of Dominica website at dominica.gov.dm/notices. So those of you listening, viewing, who wish to view the draft legislation, you can access it at dominica.gov.dm. We'll now take your questions. Carlisle.
Thank you very much. The first one is that seeing that there are non-nationals in Dominica for over 20 years and pay taxes and can't obtain their passport after how many attempts, what is government going to do in terms of assisting them to get their Dominican passports signed off? And a number of them, Haitians, Jamaicans, they've applied, and that matter has been going on for a long time. That is my first question. My next question is, EIA report, Read Marina, we've not heard much about that, and people are asking that, yes, there has been groundbreaking, but what about the EIA report? Was there one? And if there is one, can it be made available so persons can see? The next one, you spoke about the Electoral Commission's report. You spoke about giving reports to various persons, but I did not hear you say that you would have given the various politicians, political parties. I'm not sure if I heard you say that you would have given them a copy. And my third one is we have a serious parking issue in Roseau. And people are parking all how, anyhow, and putting signs. What is government's intention as it relates to assisting in alleviating, not elevating, sorry, but alleviating, yes, thank you, persons in terms of the parking situation in Roseau? Thank you.
Thank you. In respect to your first question about non-nationals who apply, now, for you to apply for Dominican passport, you first have to become a citizen, and there is no right of passage for anybody to become a Dominican citizen. The law specifies certain conditions in terms of what you have to meet and so on, but it is not a mandatory or automatic right. There's a process, and there's a discretion on the part of the minister responsible for citizenship, and of course ultimately the cabinet who approves this request. We have granted citizenship to hundreds of non-nationals in the last few years. That process continues. It's a process, and there are a number of elements there, but it is not a situation that somebody is entitled to it. It's a process, and the process of due diligence, and sometimes people apply for citizenship, but they would have left the country. And if you apply and you're no longer resident in Dominica, then we cannot proceed with your application. You have to be resident in Dominica. And so it's not automatic, but I can say to you that we have granted citizenship to hundreds of non-nationals. We facilitated people from Europe, Americans, Canadians, persons from Africa, Haiti, several other Caribbean countries. We facilitate them. I see they come to cabinet on an ongoing basis. I understand that there can be delays in the application process. Ultimately, I believe sometimes you have a staffing constraint, but the policy of the government to grant citizenship to non-nationals is existing, and it continues. So it's not a situation where the government has stopped. There may be people, a few in between, whose application may have been there for a very long time. And sometimes even when they come to cabinet, we say, well, why is this for so long, so many years, but we continue to provide approve citizenship to several non-Dominicans and so on. But I think maybe we need to put a better mechanism in place where people can follow up. That's part of the challenge within the government system. That we need to enhance the relationship with the public in terms of being able to call someone in the public. We don't in the public service, we don't call people, and we need to work on this and so people can know, well, this is the number to call, and I can follow up and follow through. So I think maybe that's where the issue is, and not necessarily in the government's overall policy of granting citizenship. Maybe with regards to Marina, that's to say to us. I read the comments of the Dominican Republic, and because I have a duty and obligation to do so. It is not the first time we were attempted to build a marina in that same location. As a matter of fact, we would have even signed MOUs with a couple companies, and studies were done. As a matter of fact, when we did the hotel there for the Intercontinental Hotel, a complete EIA was done for the entire swamp area, not only for where the hotel itself located. And this was done, I believe, by some local Dominicans and some foreign people. And as I understand it, that EIA still stands because the circumstance has not changed in any way in that vicinity, and an EIA has a particular shelf life, as I've been advised. Further to that, the additional studies have been done in the area as it relates specifically to the marina. That was done prior to even when we built the hotel there, and subsequent to that was done. But the Dominican public can be rest assured that all of the necessary environmental safeguards will be respected. There's no government and there's no prime minister in this country that has shown the greatest regard for the environment than myself and this government. And in defense and in terms of the conservation and the preservation of the environment. So all of these things will be taken into consideration. And of course, they can be made public and people can scrutinize them if they so desire. But what we have to accept, though, is that sometimes people raise those issues as an effort to throw cold water over an ambitious project, a project that will help enhance the economic opportunities for Dominicans, that will help transform the town of Portsmouth and all the surrounding communities and indeed the entire country. And we have to guard against attempts by some to seek to take away bread from the mouths of Dominicans when they can't even give them biscuit. The reality is, all of us in Dominica have been speaking about, and the majority of us have been talking about a marina, and we always asking the government, when are you going to build a marina? Now that the government is building a marina, then we're telling people, oh, you know what? People in Lagon and Portsmouth are not going to have access to the marina, only the guests at the hotel, and so forth. Complete nonsense. Same thing with the airport. You say, well, when are we going to have night landing in Dominica? We gave you night landing. And one night landing planes started, first of all, you say the planes will never land in Dominica when we did the night landing. Planes started landing in Dominica at all times of night and day. And then they started talking about when are you going to build the international airport? Now we build the international airport, they're saying, well, it won't finish. Or the runway is too long. Why 2,850 meters? Why not 2005? Or couldn't you blast the mountain at Douglas Charleston, or go to the sea and extend the airport? And those things, instead of we engaging ourselves in Dominica, and to see how we can position ourselves as Dominicans to take advantage of the opportunities that this will create. We cannot sit on our heads in Dominica and let these projects come to completion, and then when it's completed, we're trying to see how we can take advantage. We have to start planning now as individuals and see how we can find a niche and position ourselves to take advantage of the opportunities that the international airport and the marina are gonna bring to Dominica. So rest assured, on all of the environmental safeguards and concerns will be dealt with. But also say that comprehensive studies have been done in the swamp area for many years by this government, and this will be no different from what we have done in other areas, including the international airport site. The issue of electoral reform and copies to various organizations. I am mandated or the government is mandated on the Constitution to send the bills to the Electoral Commission and the Chief Elections Officer. We have fulfilled that constitutional mandate in Section 51 of the Constitution. We're not mandated to give anybody else the copies, except when we go to Parliament and the bills are circulated to members of Parliament. What we have done out of further courtesy is to send the draft bills to each member of Parliament in an informal manner. That is to say, that is not coming from the Speaker or the Clerk of the House, has been on the other paper, so that they have an opportunity to read it. And what we will do is that we'll afford them an opportunity for us all to meet as members of Parliament, including the Speaker of the House, to go for the bills, and so they could share with us what concerns they have. We expect each member of Parliament who is a constitutional figure would engage those whom he or she are representing and share the views and aspirations of those whom he or she is representing, and hope that they can be reflected in the bills and eventually enacted into law. We have taken the liberty of posting it on government website, and persons, all entities, whether the church or the trade unions or the farmers groups or political parties, can go out there and read it for themselves, access it for themselves, and if they have comments, then they can send comments to us. But we have to accept, and let me make it very clear to Dominica, that this long, drawn-out consultation is over. I'm not going back to any public consultation. Next consultation I'm having is in Parliament on this matter. There are people who in this country who say they want electoral reform, or they do not want it. And they will want to drag it on, and hoping that the next election will come by and there will be no electoral reform, and they'll say, oh, no electoral reform. Parliament, the country has elected 21 people to represent them in Parliament. And that is where it is now. And so we wait for comments from the Electoral Commission. Comments. We are free, the Parliament will be free to accept or not accept the comments of the Electoral Commission. But we're not mandated to, as far as the Constitution is concerned, to accept. I have seen comments about people talking about, well, the government did not, the changes to the Electoral Commission did not find favor with the government. We've always said through the consultation, very clearly, that the issues which people have raised about electoral reform do not require us to go to amend the Constitution to effect those. And constitutional reform will have a different timing, a different complexion, and a different engagement. But there's absolutely no need for us to go and amend the Constitution, to go through a process of consultation on the constitutional amendments, and to go according to what the Constitution says, whether it's a referendum or a two-thirds majority in the Parliament. And even if we were to have a two-thirds majority in the Parliament, there are certain changes to the Constitution I would not want the government to go with without having to hear from the public directly on this matter, even if the government has more than two-thirds in the Parliament. And so on the electoral reform, anybody can go on the website, read, and you have comments, send to me directly, or to the general, and we will take note of those comments and so on. But to go and sit down in a room and a hall and Parish Hall and State House and Portsmouth, and so on, we had enough of that. We had enough of that. We have other things too. We have other fishes to fry. But that one is in the hot oil already, so we have to move on to it. I hope my response satisfies your question. Next one. Parking issue is a perennial issue raised by the public. But my only issue with those, some people who raise an issue with parking. The only time people raise, or some people, I don't say everybody, because there's some people who have genuine concern with parking, is that when they're inconvenienced. So I was looking for parking in Roosevelt. I can't get parking, but too much vehicles in Roosevelt. You know what I'm saying? We have to, each of us must play a part in finding a solution to parking. Now, we have a proposal. I believe the government may need to go back to the proposal of putting a bus terminal across the river, adjacent to the apartments, Riverside Apartments. We had a comprehensive plan from Public Works at the time, and we engaged the bus drivers in consultation, and many people do not want that. So you have to address the issue of all of these buses coming into town, and you have so many bus stops. And then every business in Dominica, small and big, wants a no parking. And that's to say to the police, and I'll say to the police, and I'll say so publicly, the police is not in a position to grant anybody no parking. It has to go through a legal process. You must go for an SRO and have it gazetted for anybody to have a no parking in Rosa. And you cannot take government road for your private parking and don't pay government. So all of these things we're going to be putting fees. So if you want a no parking, you will have to pay a substantial fee to have a no parking in front of your business, because you deny any taxpayers access to the road. The police only has authority to put temporary no parking in the event of a function taking place or an activity, carnival, whatever it is, and you put a no parking. But to give somebody a permanent parking, the police doesn't have the authority in law to do that. It has to go for the cabinet. An SRO has to be effected. And it has to be gazetted. And only when it is gazetted, then that no parking, you can be charged for no parking in front there. I think with the Road Enhancement Project, some elements of addressing the parking will be instituted in the roads enhancement project. But we have to find a way of limiting the number of vehicles coming in through the city. What we have done as a government, as you have seen, is that we have built several bridges down by the Roosevelt Market and the other one by the bridge, by the stadium. And then we enhanced the bypass between Baffert State and Goodwill, Upper Goodwill. With two-lane traffic. At back in the days, there was one lane, and you could only go up and down at particular times of the day. So you have to park in all an effort towards alleviating the traffic congestion. So if I'm coming from south going to north, there's no need for me to pass through in the King George V Street and Great George Street to go out of town. I could pass through the gardens and go through Baffert State and go down to Goodwill, and out you go. But sometimes people like the vibes in Roosevelt and they want to drive through Roosevelt and all these things, and you have these issues. There's also a proposal, and I think something that we may need to look at, of having a bypass again, bypassing the botanical gardens and getting out of there, so that also can alleviate the traffic on Bath Road, coming on the Bath Road, etc. But parking, I don't think the government has the resources to go and build a parking lot or a parking building at this time. So I'm not going to promise somebody we're going to buy land that is so expensive in Roosevelt to build a parking that none of us would pay 5 cents to park in there. And how are you going to repay this loan that you will take, or maybe $25 or so million to build a parking thing? So I believe that we have to institute maybe parking meters, increase the fines for parking indiscriminately. Those who want private parking in front of no parking in front of businesses, increase the fees substantially, and build bus stops as far as practically possible outside the precincts of Roseau itself, the city itself, and have it outside of the bridges, so that you limit the number of vehicles coming into the city. And can we not try something? Have 2 days in the week where we say no private vehicles into town, and see how that will work. Let's say no parking in town on a Friday. Let's try it. No private vehicles. And 95% of the problem solved. And then it will enhance our health because we walk in. Something we don't know much in Dominic exercise. So sorry for the long response to this, but it is something that preoccupies the mind of the government. This is what we have done in terms of access into and out of Roseau. And I think for the Roseau Enhancement Project, I think we will further enhance our efforts towards addressing this. But there must be some regulations that you put in place. There must be some conditionality that you put in place in terms of the thoroughfare through the city and so on. And so there is a mixture of things. I don't think building a parking, whatever you call it, is going to solve the problem, because the reality is we do not have a culture of parking in paid areas. Back in the days, even when I'm going, back in when you had the Windsor Park and you saw a fete at the Windsor Park or Carnival City, even if it was free, Dominicans used to scale the walls because there was a culture of stowing. And so even if we have to be frank with ourselves, yes, in America, yes, in but there are Caribbean countries that have built parking stations and have not worked because we don't have the culture of it. And sometimes we want the government to address an issue, but we do not want government to take the actions that are required to address the issues. The fines and the towing away your vehicle, unless you don't pay, you won't get it out, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to have to be tough in terms of the vehicle management and traffic management. It's not only moral suasion of building the facilities. The legislation must come, and the reorientation of our cultural habits would have to come into effect as well. That's just my humble perspective of things. I might be completely wrong from some people's perspective, and completely right on others, and maybe half right and half wrong from some others. But that's my perspective. And it's not an exhaustive approach. I'm just sharing some points in this press conference. Yeah.
Okay. Prime Minister, good morning to you. Curtis Matthew, BBS Radio. I know you've spoken a lot about electoral reform, but what significant changes do we expect as a public in these new bills that's going to go to Parliament very soon? So can you just tell us at least some of the significant changes that we expect in these reform bills? And as we look ahead to Budget 2024, what can you tell us about government finances? And is it still too early to say it's going to be a tax-free budget 2024?
Just to answer the first question, budget and finances. In respect to some of the significant changes, and of course, persons are free to go on the website and to peruse the bills that have been posted. One, you're going to have the confirmation process, where each person who is on the voters list must present himself, avail himself to the Electoral Commission to say, yes, I am Curtis Matthew, this is where I'm voting, this is my ID, etc. And so that your necessary biodata, as required by the law, will be taken, and then you will be you'll be confirmed as being a bona fide voter in Dominica, and your name shall remain on the voters list. So that's one of the fundamental points. The other fundamental point is that you will require an ID. We are calling it in the law a voter ID card, and that is another fundamental point. Another fundamental point is that persons who currently reside out of Dominica and who are on the voters list, you will have to come to Dominica to have yourself confirmed. So we will not be going to the various capitals around the world to allow this to happen. We want to avoid anybody accusing us of using our embassies or hotel that is owned by a friend of the government. You know how we are in Dominica. So you'll have to avail yourself in Dominica. So say somebody who is living in the United Kingdom and who wants to remain on the voters list, he or she would have to travel to Dominica to have his name confirmed or her name confirmed on the voters list. So we won't come to London or to Manchester to have you confirmed. That will be done in Dominica. And there are some others that obviously, if you read the bill, but there's some of the fundamental points in there, and there's several other pieces there that would certainly enhance the transparency and the modernization of the electoral process, so that the quote-unquote bloated list can be dealt with and dispensed with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm speaking sincerely in an objective manner. I don't believe that better can be done in respect to addressing the issues that Dominicans have raised over time in respect to what they want to see change in Dominica. What we have to guard against is a constant shifting of the goalposts and keep adding things after you see what is included. Say, well, what about this? What about that? Because we have gone ahead and we've included so many things that were not necessarily part of the original discussion, and that's fine. But this thing must be done with good intentions. You understand? And so we believe that in the first round that these things can address the concerns, and let's move forward. The budget, obviously work has started on the preparation. The government finances are not bad. What the challenge the government has is that the cost of running the country has increased, like that's done for businesses and households, because the government is the largest consumer of goods and services. So if the price of item A was $5 last year and it has increased to $8, government also pays that $8, because government also pays VAT as well. So when we import things as a government, we have to pay the customs VAT, to get it out. And some of these guys are customs, some of they're Republican, some of they don't want to deliver to you on this government base. You know what I'm saying? So we pay. So the cost of running the country has increased. Now, the other thing is that what we have focused on is, as you recognize, the government is preoccupied with some of the major ticket items, big ticket items that we believe are essential towards the realization of the dynamic Dominic and the prosperity that we have been talking about. So the airport, the extension of the runway, for example, which cost us over $30 million. The various pieces of infrastructure that we're putting down in place. And I hear people talk, well, okay, Skerrit, going to build a $200 million marina, but I haven't got my house yet. But for me to ensure that you get your house, there must be revenue coming into the country. And for the kind of revenue that we need to sustain these investments, you're going to need to have those kinds of investments in the country to bring those kinds of revenues that you need. Because the reality is, yes, we may increase the cost of applications for this or that service from the government, but that is just to cover a fraction of what it costs the government to provide the public the service. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? But that will not give you any significant revenue to sustain the social safety net, which are crucial. And I hear people say, well, if Skerrit had stopped the SUK or Skerrit had stopped the NEP or Skerrit had stopped this, we would have had money to build the marina already, or we had money to do this. If you do not invest in social safety nets and you let people descend into poverty, it's going to take you a generation to cure that problem. People are going to get themselves involved in all sorts of activities. The young boy's family can't fend for him. He has to go and fend for his parents. And ostensibly, most times, he gets himself in illegal activities. So, if I do not have the NEP, was costing $5 billion every month, $60 million every year, in 3 years or so, I'll have enough money to build it in cash. But one has to appreciate that if we stop the NEP program, the implications for the society. And we have to ensure that as a society we maintain the social cohesion. And so we are fortunate, albeit we are holding the strain, because if I stop the NEP today, give me $5 million, $60 million every a year, I can pay everybody who we owe in and still have money left. If I stop the allowance for 65 and over, it will give me another $3 or $4 million to have that I could pay everybody we owe. If I stop the scholarship program, a young girl came to me, she's doing medicine at the university, she needs $27,000 US. We have to give her some help, because if we don't give her some help, she won't achieve her dream, coming from a family that maybe she's the only one who has gone to university or college. And so what do we do? And so we have to hold the people in the social safety net until when the economy can sustain them independently of those social safety nets, at least a grouping of them. And then you free up yourself, and then you have extra cash to play with. So there are people who are taking who want to advise me in a very indifferent manner. For me and you who have a house and a motor car and a job, we look at life differently from somebody who doesn't. And we cannot be indifferent to the person who doesn't. Because it is, if I have a home, I would like everybody in my village to have a home. And everybody in the country to have a home. They can call theirs. That's my perspective of life. Not because I struggle to go to school and work my butt to go to school and pay for credit card, I should tell children today that you should go and do like me. Because our forefathers didn't tell us we had to go to slavery. They fought to liberate us from slavery. And so every succeeding generation has a duty and obligation to look out for the other generation and ensure that the struggles that you went through, that you don't go through it. And so I understand what people are saying, that if I cut these programs or I cut them by half or I get rid of them, we have money. But what does it profit you? Then you'll have people who cannot fend for themselves. You'll have people who will never be able to have a house for themselves. You'll have people who will never be able to go to university by themselves and who will never be able to achieve their dreams and aspirations that others have because of their family circumstance and situation. And so it is a necessary balance. And I rather fall short and make sure people have a home and people have food on the table and people have jobs. And so when I hear people talk about, well, why are we doing the airport, or we should not do the airport, or we should not do the marina, or we should not do this road, or we should not do the housing and all these things, I think people have to look beyond the individual circumstance and look at the greater good of the society. Because you may have a job, you may have a home, but if you have people around you, and none of them are in your village or where you live, and all of them can't go to school, the parents not working, they have no homes to sleep in, they have no washroom facilities, they have no lights, they have no water. What do you think is going to happen to you? What's going to happen to you? You won't be able to get out your house. And so it is not that the revenues are not coming to the government, it is that the government's expenditure, the cost of running the country is higher now because of goods and services. And this is why what we've been seeking to do is to control discretionary spending. This is why I met with the public servants last week and to draw to the attention the need for them to step up and to account in a more transparent manner for state resources. That if you're charged with collecting revenues, the law requires that you reconcile at the end of each working day. And that you need to be able to know and ensure that we go through the legal process of expenditure approval. Everybody can be writing stuff and not send LPUs and send purchase orders to everybody, and everybody sign on. All kinds of bodies signing the public service, and nobody's saying where the money is going to come from and who's going to pay. The law never envisaged that many people will have keys to the treasury. And so this is where we have to control. You buy a vehicle for $180,000 today, tomorrow morning it disappears. It's been written off. There's no police report, and therefore if you have no police report, you can't get an insurance claim. And so the taxpayers lose $180,000 vehicle. Just like that, and nobody pays. So we are fortunate to be in a situation where we are able to sustain the social safety nets, the NEP, and at the same time be able to mobilize resources for big ticket items. These big ticket items are the ones that are going to help transform the economy and bring the kind of windfall that you need in the country and spur more economic activity and economic investments into our country. So the budget will be drafted in this context, and of course mindful of our vulnerabilities towards natural disasters and so forth. And so, as always, we've been in our budget presentations. We've always been responsive, but at the same time responsible. So we're responsive to the needs of the people, but we're also responsible. For example, notwithstanding our challenges, every month, this is why I encourage people to save as small as it is. You in the NEP get $1,000. You have no transportation to pay. You're staying at your house in the village. You must save about $200 every month from that. At least. Anybody who go and draw them the $1,000 and put in their pocket, whenever you have money in your pocket, you'll spend it. And you will spend it on things that you do not need. And tomorrow morning you're broke. And then you say the country had. But if you use a whole month's salary in one day, you must be broke. But if you save some, and you happen to be broke in 2 weeks' time, which sometimes that happens mid-month, you can go to your ATM and take a $50 and go and buy some groceries to have lunch. But if you burn everything one time, and then you go to the fast money businesses, and I don't like to speak about this because I don't want people to think I'm lecturing about how they spend the money. This is a democracy, so I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that each of us must pay attention to how we manage money, because money was never meant to be spent. It was meant to be managed. And if we're spending money, you're going to be broke every day. And then you will have debt, and you can't show anything for the debt. Not a piece of land, not a motor car that you may be able to sell, albeit a depreciated value, or your child won't send to school. It will be on consumables. And this expensive cell phones that the people, I know what is a cell phone, what people say are so expensive. And if you're going to take a cell phone by hire purchase, and then you default on payments, men paying over 14, 15, 20,000 on a cell phone at the end of the day because they defaulted on payments. From these people who give it to you on hire purchase. You understand? Maybe we'll speak some other time in length. Maybe come on DBS, you can ask me all the questions, so we can have a more lengthy discussion. But I don't want to be so long because we have a time constraint on the press conference. Yes, sorry. Morning.
Question is relating to the 2024 hurricane season. We know that government has been continuously working on building resilience in all the sectors around the country. So how prepared do you think from a government standpoint are we ready for this season?
The country can be, we can define the country as ready insofar as how ready we are as individual households. From the macro level, from the government level, we have been putting things, all through the year, been putting things in place, training people, ensuring that the shelters are in order. In some cases, we're even improving on refurbishments to some of the shelters, albeit some of them private homes. Reviewing our systems, etc., etc. So, from the government standpoint, we have things as far as humanly possible under control. What we've been seeking to do on the ODM, I want to commend them and the Minister for National Security on that, is that they've been going around the communities over the last several months and having engagements with various groups and individuals. And some of the members of parliament have had such meetings, and they'll continue in the next few days. Meeting with stakeholders, all of the stakeholders in the communities, to sensitize them and to alert them and to poke the consciousness of what we need to do. We've been utilizing, as we do every year, the NEP to cut overhangs, to unblock culverts, to unblock drains, unblock ravines. But that is government doing all those things. And I think each business place, each community group, each non-government organization, and each household must pay attention to their surroundings and examine the surroundings to determine whether we have hazards there. We have a tree over the house that if that tree falls or that branch breaks, can damage our homes. Do we have a ravine that is unblocked or drain in front of our house that we need to take out the leaves, the dry leaves in there? So there's a kind of thing that we have to pay attention to. We check our windows and our doors. Do we have to strengthen them? Do we need some extra screws on our roof to hold the roof down? So we need to examine at a family level that checklist to ensure that at the individual household we're ready. I believe from a housing standpoint, a hurricane shelter standpoint, we are much better in a much better circumstance now than we were in 2017 because of the several homes that have been constructed by the government. And all of these homes have been built with resilience in mind. So, and those homes are hurricane shelters. As a matter of fact, there are several people who are offering to use their new homes as a shelter for their neighbors, and that is certainly encouraging. So and it's important even the media to play its part to have public service announcements and to draw people consciousness and attention to their individual responsibility, the community responsibility. I think that is where we have to focus. But from a government standpoint, I can tell you that we're doing everything possible to ensure that the country is in a better place to withstand any natural disaster come our way. We continue to pray, of course, that we're not affected, because the reality is we can't afford a hurricane, not in the next 20 years, but we have to keep on praying, but we also have to prepare ourselves. We must not be like a foolish virgin. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
When you spoke of the Woodbridge Bay cruise port, there's one more thing I think you missed. What would be the amendments to the road that would, because to avoid the amount of traffic during that area, are there any road amendments to that area as well?
Well, the challenge you have where you have so much congestion, especially when you have a cruise shipping port, and the cruise ship is using the Woodbridge Bay, is that all of the buses are parked on the roadside, on either side of the road, so that creates a congestion. With the new cruise village, all of these buses will be off the road completely. So there'll be, and this is one of the reasons why we decided to separate the two, to have one in Canefield and the other at Woodbridge Bay. Of course, it'll be difficult for us to build a new bridge, a new port, while we operate in the old port, and so that's another major consideration. Though going to Canefield costs us a little more, because Canefield is very deep, based on the studies that we have done there. And so it'll cost us a little more long there, but I think it's important that we spend a little more, and to ensure that we build for the future. Because the reality is, you have very little options in terms of that, of getting out of that section of the port. But with the construction of the cruise village, then you will have great opportunity to manage the traffic in this area, going forward and so on. So I think there are some designs that we have that will help alleviate the traffic, even when you build a cruise village. Because when we designed the cruise village back then, with the port adjacent to it, the cargo port adjacent to it, we had included in that some efforts to address the congestion in that area. But with removing the cargo port from Woodbridge Bay and having everything, so everybody who will have a part to play on cruise and cruise dispatches will be off the main road completely, 100% of the main road. Every single thing, all of the shops, all of the bars, all of the parking bays, all of the everything, customs, immigration, everything will be completely off the road, and give us an opportunity now to address some parking. There will be reclaiming some land to the south as well, and this will help us in smoothing out that area by Joseph and Gabriel and between Joseph and Gabriel and the parking lot at the port. So there's some opportunities there we'll be able to address the congestion in that area then. Okay, and that's part of the consideration. Thank you very much.
I'm hearing that the time is almost up. The 2 doctors, PM, and 3 individuals, they filed some matters in the High Court as it relates to challenging the abortion laws of the country. What will government be doing as it relates to that? Will government be challenging them, etc.? Because there are concerns, and a number of persons also are concerned. I know the churches also they're part of that, and they're also expressing concerns. The next one is relating to the prison. I was in court this week, and the prison superintendent acting in terms of questions posed to him by the judge and the director of public prosecutions stated that there are no insurance and no risk allowance for prison officers at the Dominica State Prison. They're expressing concerns about that. Is the government going to do something about that? And the mentally ill patients, there are 52 mentally ill patients housing have been now housed at the Dominica State Prison. What will government be doing as it relates to that? I know in Antigua and Barbuda, that was a concern for the courts, and they've since taken action to deal with that. And we know that the prison officers did not trained to deal with those persons. 52 mentally ill patients at the state prison indeed is a lot.
With regards to your first question about the challenge to the abortion laws, the Attorney General office, Attorney General himself is looking at that. He's given me a preliminary report on this, and this will go to the cabinet at some point. Obviously, we'll engage the stakeholders, the churches and others on this matter, and to look at the government's defense or response rather to the challenge. But certainly, the government will look at challenging, at responding to the challenge. But that's a matter for the Attorney General to put in place as the government's principal legal advisor. Okay, regards to the prison officers not having insurance or risk allowance, I'm hoping that the superintendent would have also informed the courts. I'm not sure when it happened that they met with me, along with the Minister of National Security, and I have given the ministry the instructions to proceed with examining the provision of insurance and looking at this risk allowance that they're talking about. So that is in training. I've been looked at, and we're hoping that we can find some common ground on this in sooner rather than later. But we do take note of the concerns of the prison officers, and in respect to these two issues they have at the prison. The issue of the mentally ill patients, obviously, that is a quagmire in which many countries in developed or undeveloped find themselves in, where you may have people who have committed a major crime and who are found guilty, but who may have developed while they're in prison or prior to they go in some mental illness. And because you don't have specific facilities for them, say a prison for mentally ill patients, or want a better term, then you find them being housed in a special facility, special space at the existing prison. The reality is, all of these prisons in the Caribbean, we've inherited from colonial days, and we've tried to add and improve on these facilities every so often. So there has been a tangible improvement in the housing accommodation of the prisoners over time. But obviously, you will still have sections that were inherited many years ago and still in use. And I think that these are things that we've been talking about, and this is why we've been trying to improve on the facilities gradually, and to ensure that people are kept in a comfortable, not at their homes, but not in an inhumane circumstance or environment, that they're not wetting or et cetera, et cetera. So we're mindful of that, and we've been working with some external partners. The British have been helpful with some support in that. But we continue to invest in improving the infrastructure, and I must say that the prison officers have been very helpful in that, because they themselves have been involved in the construction of some of those facilities at a lower rate than what we would have paid otherwise. So there are a number of things that are happening there that all in an effort towards making life more comfortable for the prison officers, but ensuring that as far as practically possible that the prisoners are not in an inhumane environment, because at the end of the day, they're still human beings. We don't dislike them. We dislike their behaviors, not the person. So we have to ensure that the personality is not an human circumstance. My view is that, and the minister and I have discussed that and both agree, is that we need to have maybe comprehensive designs for the prison and to have it costed that without the money to do it now. But at least we'll have a project document that says we need $30 million or $25 million to build a new prison, so that it can address all of those concerns, which you will have. And so we're mindful of the observations. We're aware of those observations. They're not necessarily criticisms per se. They're just some of the facts that which exist that we've been trying to address over a period of time. But I would say that the prison environment, physical environment, is certainly better now than it was 10 years ago, and it will certainly continue to improve. But I agree entirely that we have to find a solution. And of course, I know they've found a temporary solution at the prison, especially because even if when you have young boys or juveniles there, you try to, prison officers very conscientious when it comes to that. And so they have been able to work some things out, and so that you do not expose the youngsters to other hardened criminals in the prison, and they come out worse than they came in, etc., etc. There's skills training programs, a number of things that you allow them to do so that when they go back to the community, they have a skill, and hoping that they can be on the safe and narrow. So they say, but I believe that to fix an old thing is always a problem, I believe in demolishing things and rebuilding. But when you add in on old, you'll never necessarily see your way. And it costs you more money in the long run when you're trying to put new concrete on old concrete. But we're mindful of those issues, both with the personnel and also the facilities.
Prime Minister, an intervention from someone from the public. Can you ask the Prime Minister about the fact that most private companies want people to retire at 60 years, but you only get your true monthly pension at 65? So that's a concern from a member of the public. And I've spoken about the stevedores and longshoremen at the Dominica Air and Seaport Authority for the last 2 years. I know you met with these employees recently at the Goodwill Parish Hall, Prime Minister, and you said at the time that government will take action very soon to relieve their plight. What is the very latest as far as the stevedores and longshoremen are concerned? And lighting for Windsor Park Stadium, I know that project started a few years now. What is the latest as it relates to lighting at Windsor Park Stadium and a sports policy for Dominica? And if I may have time to ask, I could ask about the plans you revealed recently for a state-of-the-art cultural center for Dominica. What now is the future of the Arab House of Culture?
Yeah, that's a lot of questions here. Regards to the private sector folks who leave at 60 and get their pension at 65, that is from Social Security. From the government standpoint, what we have done is that we provide them with an opportunity to receive something from the government until they get to Social Security. So we have had this bridge between their retirement and Social Security, and I believe that that this is something that the private sector people will need to look at, a bridge between their retirement and 65. Now, I believe that the bigger question I think we need to ask ourselves in Dominica is whether we should not cut to the chase and take the age of retirement to 65. What I'm finding out in public service, and a number of people have come to me, and it's something that we're starting to look at, is that people were given an option back in the days to retire at either 55 or 60. But many people chose 55. Now, a lot of these people, they look like they're 25 years old. And some of them still have a little mortgage to pay. You know what I'm saying? And some of them may have taken a little residual funds to send their children to school, and they still have paying. And then they're 53 and 54. And time flies fast. You know what I'm saying? And so they're not asking. There's some people who come to me, some nurses who come to me, for example, other persons say, Prime Minister, I don't want no gratuity or anything. No. I just want you to let me work until I'm 65, and then when I get to 65, you give me my gratuity. What we have done is that we have placed those persons on contracts. But I believe the time we should have that conversation, have a national retirement age of 65. Because the 60 and 65 the gap is creating serious challenges for many individuals who are still owing on the mortgage and so on. They have to wait until 65 to get something, or 60, 65 to get something. What they're getting is it might be half than what they were getting there. And sometimes it is less than the mortgage. So I don't have to do the bus for you to understand that these people will have to go and now bite from the little savings that they had for when they get a little older to start taking from. So I think that we need to have the conversation. that those persons in the public service who sign at 55, should we not review these things? That's also, obviously you have to engage the unions on this and other persons on that. So it's not I'm not proposing that the government takes a unilateral decision. I'm not saying that we need to put that on the table. And in the private sector, it's worse for people. You understand? It's worse for people. So I understand and appreciate the anxiety that they have, that they have to wait. And 5 years is a long time. I mean, it's a long time, when you look at this matter. To have your wages cut or to wait for it, and by the time you get it, it's a fraction of what you were getting, and you have the mortgage, you save all the money when you're working, you have to use that now to augment the payments that you're making, the difference that you're making, to pay your mortgage. So I believe the bigger question is, should we not consider our national retirement age of 65? That's just it's a discussion that I believe the country needs to have. These are the kind of conversation we need to have. There.
Some concerns for the young people who expect to take this position.
I don't think so. I don't necessarily think so, because the demand for human resources is growing, because the economy is expanding. As a matter of fact, I made some statement some years ago, and I think it may have been dealt with in one of the budget addresses, that as currently on the laws, for a public servant to get a second job or to work otherwise, he or she will need to get the approval of his employer, let's say the government. I believe we should get rid of that law completely, and let people go and work at night time and do your accounts for the hotel, and bring your $3,000 at night. Go and invest in something else and bring an additional income to yourself, so that when you get your sunset years, you have something else to rely on. Because we have unemployment, when people say unemployment in Dominica, we can't get people to work. You speak to any of the private sector employers, they can't get people to work. We have a problem. You understand? And this is why the major preoccupation of the government now is ensuring that we're going to start sending people to get ready for the airport management and maintenance and all those things. Now we work in with foreign governments, foreign friends, who are prepared to accept some of our students or young people to train them for us. And so people will go to work on the Beijing International Airport and the airport in Dubai, and so understand its operations. And so we're talking to friends to help train people in practical skills and all of the areas that we need for the airport. So it will not have any negative impact on the younger people, because the demand is growing. You understand? So it's a conversation we have, look at the pros and the cons, and arrive at a consensus. But I believe it's important that we have a conversation. That is from a respectful standpoint. And the issue of lighting at the stadium, I think the ministry is in touch with the contractors on that, and I think it's a matter for them to finalize the negotiations and to advise the Ministry of Finance on this. So I think it's the Ministry of Sports hands to do it, but they have the clearance on the cabinet, myself, to finalize the negotiations on that, so that we institute those lights. We have an offer to host. Is the CPL here, right? CPL here, and we're looking at this favorably, and so on. So we need to ensure that we have the opportunity to host night matches here, to host the CPL tournament here in Dominica. We're speaking to the organizers of that. The sports policy, we do have a draft sports policy that was reviewed by a committee led by Mr. Rupert Sorrento, and they've done some fantastic work. What we have sought to do in the cabinet on advice of the Ministry of Sport is to appoint the Sports Council. But we rely on the 1976 Act. Though one of the mandates of the Sports Council, what we're appointing, is to review new legislation. So we have mandated the Attorney General's office to start the drafting of new legislation on this. But the legal drafters, the legal advice now is that we should maybe go to Parliament to amend the existing law for the time being, so that the Sports Council can have proper legal standing to be in existence. So that's what we're looking at. I don't necessarily agree with them because there can be understanding that they have a particular mandate in the circumstance. So the letter of appointment would state what specific mandate you're given to them. I don't necessarily agree that we have to go to Parliament to amend the law. A law that you should already have got, you're going to need to get rid of anyway very soon. And it's not the appointment of a president or government or something. It's a sports council. I don't necessarily agree. But we can have a further discussion with the Ministry of Sports and Ministry of Legal Affairs at the cabinet level and so on. The cultural center, we're proceeding, we've put in documents together and finalizing local locations. As we indicated, we'll engage local practitioners in theater and culture, so we can get a feedback. Our records of culture, my understanding is that there's some basic, I thought it was a complete roof there to replace, but my understanding that's not the case. Is some basic improvements we need to do. Every other aspect for the records of culture is on island. The chairs, the sound system, the audio system, the carpeting. We paid for the carpeting. It's just for the guy to come in because he can't come in to put it because there's some leaks. And I think that's feel that the Ministry of Culture needs to maybe give greater attention to this and hit the hammer on the nail, and so that we can no, you're taking the hammer, you hit the nail, yeah. All right, so I think that's what we need to do, and so that the agriculture can be in use while we work on the longer vision of construction a modern, built for purpose, cultural center. Yeah, that's it for me. Well, look, questions today. You guys were waiting for me there. But I want to thank you for your questions and your sincere questions. I do hope that I was able to respond to you. Oh, you wanted to ask? Yeah. So I want to thank you again for your questions. Maybe while we're on the tour next week, courtesy will ask me the other questions. We can go live on that one. Or you can meet me after, but we have to come to an end, the press conference. I want to thank you again for making the time, the press. We appreciate it. Without you, we have no press conference. And thank you for the time. I know you have other things to do, but you make time to be here. And really appreciate it and for your questions, your sincere questions on behalf of the public. Let's have a wonderful weekend. God bless you. God bless our nation. Let us pay attention to the hurricane season. Let us pay attention to the hurricane season. Each of us must play our part and ensure that we eliminate the hazards around us and we be part of the national mobilization in preparing ourselves for the hurricane season. And of course, we have to keep on watching and praying at the same time. Thank you. God bless you.